embroidery guide on how to do a rose, or otherwise known as a pinwheel or a woven wheel. So we're going to use our embroidery pen to do a circle just to guide us. And then we're going to stitch an odd number of structural stitches. Here I'm doing 5. You want to try and keep them an even length. You'll see that I didn't actually manage to do that, and that creates a problem later down the line. But we'll talk about that later. So I've got my structural stitches here. I'm bringing my needle back through with the thread, and I'm going to invert my needle, so I'm actually sewing with the blunt end. Just be careful not to prick yourself. So for the first stitch, I'm going to go under, take my thread all the way through, and then over the second stitch. Then I'm going to take my blunt end of the needle and thread it through under my third stitch. Okay, and I'm going to repeat this pattern. So now I'm going to go over the fourth stitch and under the fifth stitch. And there I've completed my first turn around the circle. Okay, so now I've just gone under. This time for stitch number 1, I'm going to go over this alternating pattern. So I'm going to take my blunt end of the needle, go over stitch 1, and this time under stitch 2. I'm going to go over stitch 3, under stitch 4. I'm now going to take my thread over stitch 5, and I've completed my second turn around the wheel. I've sped it up now, but I continue doing that over under pattern until until either I fill up and cover all the structural threads, or until I run out of thread, which is what happens here. So as you can see, I'm just doing that over under pattern. Keep, as you go, just making sure you're pressing down the threads so they don't all stack up on top of each other. You want them to sort of fan out and create that rose-like structure rather than being too vertical. So periodically as I go through, you might just see me tapping them down. Now I'm running out of thread, rapidly running out of thread. This is not a problem. All you do when you're at the end of your thread is finish off like you would normally do. So just pop it through, keep it quite close to the rose, pop the needle through, finish it off, and then change your thread. Now obviously you can keep it the same colour. Here I've decided to do a 2-tone rose, so I've just switched it into yellow. And I'm going to pick up from where I finished off. So that was a under thread, so the first stitch in the yellow thread is over. Just make sure it sits nice and flat onto the previous thread. So I've gone over, now under again. So now I will do over, and I will continue to build this rose up now, just continuing that pattern of over, under, until I've got a nice chunky rose here. Okay, so again, I'm still stitching with the blunt end of my needle. Why we do this is because if you stitch with the sharp end of your needle, you're more likely to catch some of the floss or some of the thread, and so it actually starts to sort of disintegrate the rose. So by stitching with the blunt end of the needle, you're less likely to do that. It's not guaranteed, but less likely. Now you'll notice that I have one of my structural stitches still just pointing out, and that's because I didn't do them even length. This one was a little bit longer than the other ones. So what I'm having to do is just compensate for that a little bit, and that this, you can see here, I'm just flattening out the stitch a little bit to cover that structural stitch. To finish off, I just come really close to the rose, pop my needle through, and then finish off as you would a normal stitch. Here I've decided to do something extra fancy and add in a little centre to my flower by doing a French knot. If you want more information on French knots, just check out my other video. But here I'm just going through the centre, pulling through the French knot. Sometimes it can be a little reluctant, so just gently encourage it through the fabric, and then secure your French knot as you normally would. And there we go, that's our first woven wheel, pinwheel, or embroidered rose. Happy sewing!